Holy crap, I'm not sure I've ever seen a CNBC host lay into someone like they just did Senator Warren. I want to play that. I want to also show you what RFK just said about the Democratic Party, which was pretty interesting. I heard that he actually got taken off. They cut away to commercial after they figured out what he was saying on some different networks. And I want to go through why Bitcoin's pumping right now, which, I've been saying over the last few videos, you have to be ready for this, especially last video and the video before that. So if you don't mind, hit subscribe, turn on the bell notification underneath the video so you can see future videos just like this. The next few days we'll be up at the cottage, so it'll be a little bit different, not in the normal studio, so apologize for that. The recording equipment isn't as good, but we will deal with it. If you want to trade cryptocurrency, there's a link underneath the video where you can sign up for Margex. If you want, there's a link underneath the video to Margex. I've been saying that this is the time to open up long positions, and you can see here, we're up almost 1,000% on a very aggressive. I'm not saying to do that kind of aggressive positioning, but we're up almost 900% on that. This one's up 100% on a 10x. This one is up 580% on a 20x, where we nailed the bottom with size as well on that one. And now, even since shooting this video, the price of Bitcoin is shooting up. We have Bitcoin moving up another $1,000. So if you don't want to miss out, we're at 1,000% profit. If you don't want to miss out, there is that link to Margex underneath the video. Of course, always come at this from a smart standpoint. Don't just come in and just say, oh, because Bitcoin's going up, I'm going to go long 100x. No, wait for the right time. Wait for some support. Wait for some news. Wait for something, or go a longer, a little bit less leverage, something like that. Just play this smart. Don't FOMO into a super aggressive position, but maybe FOMO into getting an account so that way you can actually take advantage of the market that we're in. Of course, always do your own research though. Let's also give a shout out to Cade. I'll leave his link to his channel underneath the video. Really smart guy. I met with him in person, talked business for a full weekend, and he just started up a channel. I mentioned it in the last video, and since then we've been able to triple the size of his YouTube channel. So maybe we try one more time. If you haven't already subscribed to him, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and if you don't mind as well, you can do the same thing for me. But let's start here. Obviously, Powell was super dovish today. Everyone's super excited. There's some back and forth after this happens. Okay, is he just lowering rates because something's wrong with the economy? And then everyone's like, F it, liquidity's coming. And you can see just a big green candle. This is the daily here. And we broke out of this downtrend. We had just been continuously closing within these bounds. And now we're up above even the 200-day moving average, which is quite bullish. This is also kind of an important area around 64,000. You can see we got rejected here once. We hit support around 63.4 here once. And this is a very key point in the last cycle. This was one of the peaks around 64,000. Obviously, there's just been so much resistance and support between 60,000 and 66,000. Be nice to continue to see a move up. I'm curious to see what the exchanges do today, or what the ETFs do today, to see what kind of inflows are out there after this huge change from the Fed. And as we covered in the last video, global liquidity is spiking. 4% in the last couple months is massive, and that's what we've seen. And DXY is falling down. Actually, DXY right now is 100.67, just about the lowest point that we've seen all year, going into July of last year. So this is the lowest point. We're right at the lowest point. Hopefully we continue to fall down, which I think is probably what's going to happen, because Fed's going to cut rates and bull run. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I covered in the last video. We don't have to spend more time on it right now. Breaking: RFK Jr. just dropped a bomb on the Democratic Party. Today's Democrats, they're all about war, censorship, and serving big pharma and big tech investors, not the party my father and uncle knew. So let's actually play a bit of a clip from this, and this ties into what we're going to go into next with Cnbc. Someone just getting roasted by the host there. But let me play this for you. And of course, we try not to take political stances on anything except for what makes us money on this channel, and this is relevant in that way. Let's cover this.
Instead of showing us her substance and character, the DNC and its media organs engineered a surge of popularity for Vice President Harris based upon, well, nothing. No policies, no interviews, no debates, only smoke and mirrors and balloons in a highly produced Chicago circus. There in Chicago, a string of Democratic speakers mentioned Donald Trump 147 times just on the first day. Well, who needs a policy when you have Trump to hate? In contrast, at the RNC convention, President Biden was mentioned only twice in 4.
Okay, so sorry for the graininess of that, but he came out and basically just roasted the Democrats. Now let me just make sure you can still see everything. Yeah, just roasted the Democrats, and I think a lot of people obviously thought he was going to support Trump, but he just went after the Democratic Party, saying that they're not doing anything. They're just not Trump, which is getting votes right now. He says the Democratic Party is all about war, censorship, and serving big pharma and big tech's interests. And this big tech comment is interesting because Senator Warren was just on CNBC. And just watch this. This is hard to watch, but I want to comment on a couple things after we play it.
Look at what happened to their profit margins. If they'd just been passing along costs, profit margins would have stayed about the same. But for some industries, some companies, profit margins shot up. And do you know where they shot up most often? It was in companies or in industries where there was a lot of concentration, a lot of market power, places where the market is not functioning competitively. So you end up with someone, you remember we all talked about egg prices. You end up with something like this giant egg producer, Cal-Maine. And Cal-Maine raises the price of eggs. Their profit margins increased by 718%. That's not just passing along costs.
Senator,
and that is a time in any
sophistry. Your example on craft. Your example on craft is even worse.
You finished first. In any of the states around the country that already have price gouging laws in place.
Can I tell you why those are fallacious and misleading at best? And your craft analogy is even, why can't I tell you? Please let me tell you. Craft, you say, was 440% profit increase. The example you used, the prior quarter from the year before, they had a charge of $1.3 billion, an accounting change which wiped out profits. Then they earned what they normally.
Let
me finish now. They earned.
You didn't let me finish. Look at the data. Come on. We have economic study now after economic study.
This is the way it always goes.
When there is more concentration,
40 million eggs were destroyed because of avian flu.
When there is more concentration in an industry, we have seen much greater increases in
Do you attribute to inflation?
Margins.
That's what you think we need to do to solve it?
They're not random. They are not random one-offs. It is part of the problem when you've got companies that are gouging consumers on prices. Consumers need to know they've got somebody on their side.
Senator,
and
listen,
it's happening
we're trying to help. We're trying to actually do.
Where are you in the 37 states that currently have price gouging laws?
Just quickly on that point, Senator Warren,
can you
this is Kelly here. Can I just clarify how this would work?
This is the way you never lose an argument because no one can ever say anything back to you, Senator.
The state price gouging laws they look at when a state of emergency is declared, and they, for the most part, say if your prices go up 10 or 15% compared to before that state of emergency, you have to pay a fine. So on a national level, how exactly would this work? Would you define the state of emergency? Does it have to be declared on a national level? Are you then talking about a 10 or 15% increase in prices versus prior to that declaration, and then companies have to pay a fine? Okay, fine. Maybe that applies in 1% of the situations. But this legislation, which is still vague, is making it sound like something on the scale of broad price controls would be imposed, broadly speaking. So which of the two systems is it?
So it is not price controls. This is about when the market itself is not functioning. Sometimes markets don't function because there's been a localized emergency, a hurricane, a wildfire, flooding. And so in states that have these price gouging laws, they can come in and say, look, you can do some price increases, But if you're going above a certain level, you have to be able to justify it. You have to show that what you're doing is passing along costs.
Would it be company by company?
Perfectly reasonable thing.
Okay, a couple thoughts. Obviously, I have to be careful because I'm speaking to a lot of people in a lot of different situations. But this is really frustrating, and this is something that I think is just bad from politicians in general. The fact that, you know, no one ever explains really what's happened, which is we printed a lot of money, right? We printed a ton of money, and that caused prices to go up. Now, I do think there's something to be said for the fact that where they're looking, like the grocers or the food producers, right? Maybe they have a year where their profit margins go way up because something happens. They're like, right, that egg analogy or that egg example. Someone loses a ton of eggs, so then the rest of the eggs become more valuable. Like, why does that need to be price controlled? That's something that's going to naturally work itself out in a couple months, right? Something that I think actually affects the broader population is what big tech does, right? Apple products, right? I invest in a lot of the big tech companies, but Apple has a monopoly, right? They've made it very hard for you to have like one Apple item and then have an Android item and then go back and forth. They also raise the price every single year, right? Significantly. Now, maybe it's not 15% on a phone, but what's more important, like raising eggs 100% for a couple months or raising the price of phones 10% every single year for the last 20 years in a row, right? Like that kind of stuff, I think is where politicians, I don't even think they should step in then. But if they're going to come in and talk about monopolies, it can't be with craft. It can't be in a very competitive space where the margins are 1 or 2%. That just doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, Elizabeth Warren just getting roasted on live TV. Pretty interesting to watch. Pretty fun to watch, honestly. But let me know your thoughts on that. And again, I try not to get too political, but obviously politics plays such a role, especially in an election year, right, where there's smoke and mirrors all over the place. Of course, both sides have their faults, right? But I think we do have to point out the faults when we see them, no matter what the side is. Let me know your thoughts, though, underneath. Of course, if you do want to trade crypto, there is that link to Margex underneath the video. Of course, always do your own research. Make sure that you understand what you're doing if you are leverage trading. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's been a fun day. Let's hope the party continues here. I would love to see Bitcoin pushing back up. Let me know your thoughts, though. Thank you so much, and I'll see y'all in the next